Every time I look at this figure, I just have one winged angel playing in my head. Today we're taking a look at PlayArt's Kai, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Sephiroth. Bum, 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 bum. Welcome back. Oh baby, I've been waiting for this one for a long time. One of my favorite villains ever in any medium whatsoever. Sephiroth, I'm so excited to finally have him in hand. He comes in an absolutely massive box, not because he is especially huge, but because his sword dominates the entire box. It runs the entire length of it. So this is the biggest box of the Final Fantasy VII Remake range that I've reviewed so far. And he is worthy of it. So you get a good look at the figure there. Turning to this side, we do get a little bit of a biography on Sephiroth. No real hints on his motivations in Remake. We'll have to wait for the Rebirth to find out. We have the logo on the back, on the side, excuse me. And on the back, some pictures of the figure. So let's get him out and see what he is like. With Sephiroth out of his packaging and looking as intimidating as hell, we'll start by measuring him up. He stands about 11 inches tall, or 28 centimeters. And for height comparison, here is Sephiroth next to Cloud, so you can see how they compare. He is absolutely huge. He towers over Cloud. He's just massive. So aside from pure evil, Sephiroth does bring some accessories. We get our PlayArt's Kai base here, with all these different holes in it. Using this articulated pole here, you just kind of slot it in, whichever hole you like, and then using any of these two clips attached to the end, to grab and secure the figure however you want to. Really handy stands. I really like them. I use them for all my figures just to provide a little bit of extra support. You don't want one of these figures falling off a shelf and damaging themselves. You do get an alternate face for Sephiroth with the closed eyes. We'll take a closer look at this when we look at the figure itself. You do get an array of hands. You have two splayed open hands, two relaxed hands, and two sword holding hands, in addition to the two fists that are on the figure itself. And last but not least, you have his sword, the Masamune, or the Masamune, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. This thing is absolutely insane. It is, bring out the tape measure here, just over 13 inches long, about 13 and a half inches long. So that's humongous. Looking at the detail on it, kind of a simple design, no writing or anything on the blade, but its sheer size is just so intimidating. The paintwork on the blade itself is really well done. Looks nice and metallic, very sharp looking. Very impressive, quite the space hog. Tip is really pointy too. Just be careful with that. So what would I have liked to have seen with the figure? I would have liked to have a hand kind of casting a magic ball or something like that. Maybe a flame spell or something. That's kind of how I picture Sephiroth, with his hand up kind of in the air casting a spell. That would have been nice. The other thing, and the major omission we're missing, is his wing. He doesn't come with the wing. And when this first was solicited, I didn't think we would see the wing in the game, but no, it is fully prominent in the game. Looking at the back of the figure, there is no spot to attach a wing, and I think the reason they left it off is just so they could sell more Sephiroth figures later on for Remake Part 2, because I don't think his design is really going to change too much, and that is disappointing, since that is such an iconic part of the character to leave it off just to sell figures, especially when these are $150. Now they've gone up to almost $200 each. Who knows what they'll be by the time Remake Part 3 comes out? They might be $250. And rebuying figures at that price is really bad. At least it would have been nice if they had had a port on the back here to plug in the wing and sell the wing in an accessory pack or something like that for those who want it. I personally wouldn't have displayed the wing just due to space reasons, but it would have been really nice to have it, and it's really poor that Square left it off. Issues with accessories aside, let's take a look at Sephiroth himself. First of all, I am blown away by this figure. I think they have done a really great job of giving us an updated Sephiroth that's still very true to what we've seen before. He's such an iconic villain, you don't want to mess with him, and they really haven't changed much. He's not too different from what we saw in Advent Children or even the CGI cutscenes or the FMV cutscenes in the original Final Fantasy VII game, and that is something you don't mess with. Looking at the face here, really like the expression. He's kind of smiling. Sephiroth isn't the type who gets too angry. He's always kind of cool and confident. See the green eyes there. This hair is really well done, although I would have liked an alternate part where it's not quite so down in front of his eyes. It looks good here, but for certain poses it would have been nice to have been able to change that up, because the front piece does actually pop off. You could have kind of swapped that out. And taking the alternate head here, the closed eyes version, we just kind of pop this off. And pop the alternate head on. And there you go, Sephiroth with the closed eyes. And the closed eyes are an interesting choice. It's a pretty specific look for him in terms of posing that. A third option would have been good, maybe an open mouth or more of a battle pose or something like that. But it is an interesting design. Looking at the rest of the body, I really like the armor pieces here. This white really contrasts nicely with the black of the rest of his outfit. No real battle damage or anything on it because Sephiroth doesn't get hit. He's that powerful. These pieces do kind of float a little bit to get out of the way of articulation. The kind of gold on this armor really just contrasts nicely. It's just subtle. We go down the hair, all this great silver paint here, really thin strands. You're going to want to be careful about that. You can kind of move it a little bit out of the way if you want, tuck it beside his collar and that, but you're going to want to be careful. Moving it, you don't want to snap his hair off and make it look bad. So you move down, you get the strapping in the bare chest there. And then moving down, we have this new belt piece. This was new for a remake. A lot of speculation about what this is, if this isn't part of his plan. Who knows? We'll have to wait to find out. A little bit of a cufflink there. Kind of different texture for his gloves. Looks like a leather, as opposed to whatever this material is, a vinyl or a different type of leather. Some different animal. Nothing too complicated about his costume here. Simple design, but so iconic. His big tall boots. You go down to the bottom. No real texture or anything on the bottom of his feet. No holes or for a stand or anything. The back of his coat. We do get some sculpted detail in there. Of course, Sephiroth facing with his back to the camera is such an iconic look from the game as he burns Nibelheim there. And we have his hair. Now the hair is done in multiple pieces. They're kind of attached and at the top here. This kind of flexible rubber that moves around. We've got 4 pieces here. And then this piece is articulated. You can see it's got a little bit of a ball peg there, like we saw with Reno and that. So you can kind of move it around and get a little bit of movement out of it. So if you want to kind of have his hair flowing to the side, you can do that. Move around at the front. Really impressed with this figure. Such an amazing presence on the shelf. Such a iconic character and a great redesign for the Final Fantasy VII Remake game. Not changing much, just kind of bringing it into a little bit more of a realistic design compared to the more cartoony design we saw in the original Final Fantasy VII. Amazing figure though. And one thing that I forgot to mention, I do think the neck is a little bit too short. I would like it if it was just slightly more up. You can actually do that if you just kind of rest the head not fully down on the ball peg. I think it looks just a little bit better. Fully down, it's not too bad. Like, it's not noticeably short, but I think just a tiny little bit more height would have been nice. So looking at articulation, his head is able to go up and down just a little bit. The hair is a big hindrance with it. The weight of it is kind of more of an issue than just kind of the ability to move. It pulls it forward. Now you can kind of use the ball peg to turn the hair there to help with that, but it is an issue. He does, of course, rotate side to side, and you can turn him around, but just be careful of these strands hanging down. You're gonna want him looking straight ahead. As you can see, he does have an abdomen cut here, which does allow him to go forward and back. And there is a ball peg at the waist there too, which allows further movement. Sephiroth isn't the most flexible of characters. In a lot of the game, he is just kind of standing there a lot of the time. As mentioned, the arm does go up. Not a bad amount considering the armor is hindering that in some ways. You do get the double bend elbow, which looks really good. There is a rotation at the top of the bicep there. And the shoulder does kind of rotate up and down like some of the other figures there, although the armor hides that ugly gap, so that's really good. The hands are on a hinge, not a ball peg. As for his legs here, this cloak does kind of move out of the way, but as you can see, there is a little bit of a split there, so I find it a little ugly to spread it too far, but you can. You get his legs spread really well. He is able to kick forward an okay amount and go back decent amount. We do get the really good double bend knee there, splitting just above his boot there. Really great. There is rotation at the top of the thigh there. Just a little bit. The foot does rotate, it rocks side to side, and you do have the up and down movement, and there is toe articulation. So his design does limit certain areas. The waist isn't the best, and neither is the shoulders, just because of the armor, and the hair does drag down the head. But like I said, Sephiroth is mostly just kind of standing there. He's not doing any super flexible Spider-Man moves and that, so you should be able to get some pretty intimidating looks out of him just standing there without standing straight up and down. He still looks really great on the shelf. So overall, it's Sephiroth. If you're collecting the Final Fantasy VII figures, he is essential, and he is well done for what you get. Like I mentioned, it would have been nice to have a magic casting hand, and the lack of the one wing is really disappointing. It's such a cash grab on Square's part. If you do want the one-winged angel version, I guarantee they will make that. There's no way they're not going to make Sephiroth with a wing for Remake Part 2, or maybe even a one-winged angel version before that. So if that's what you want, I would say hold off on this guy, but be aware the prices of the Play Arts Kai figures are going up. The new ones are $200, and where these guys were $155, $150. So who knows what they're going to be when they come out. And with Sephiroth, I could see them charging more for the figure just because he is so popular to get that one wing. But if you, like me, and you just want the normal version without the wing, this is really, really well done. And it's so great to have Sephiroth on the shelf. I can't believe that we have such great Final Fantasy VII figures. Yes, there are problems with accessories, and the price is a little high for what you get. And I know some people didn't like some of the paint apps in some of them, but for my money, I think they are really good. I love the Final Fantasy VII so much, and just to have these figures on the shelf, it's great. In my opinion, if you're only going to get 2 from the game, Sephiroth here and Cloud are the ones to get. They're the icons of the story there. They're the essential characters, and they would make a great display just on their own. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate it if you hit the thumbs up button. That would really help me out. I have reviewed many Final Fantasy VII figures, and I have more to come. So be sure to subscribe if you want to see those. But for right now, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye.